Welcome to the OFX podcast. I'm Dave Claxton, and along with me, as always, is Bethany McChesney. That felt really weird.
Yeah.
It did. It really did. I would like be tempted to edit it and do it again, but I'm not gonna. We just roll with it. It did feel very weird. So the concept was to be a little more somber today, and not at least the beginning, and not joke around about Bethany. Um, do you want to lay this all out, or do you want me to do it?
I mean, yeah, I
Yeah,
can
you do it.
lay it out. Yeah, so we're gonna chat just starting off here about our dear friend Rylan, who, at this point everyone in the community knows Rylan passed a week ago Sunday. He was out again, as his parents said, doing what he loves, paragliding, and there was an accident. And at this point, that's kind of all we know, but it did definitely hit the fitness community that we're a part of, hybrid, OCR, all of that, very hard. And even us, it was a really hard news to get. And even when I came in from my run with Jeff on Thursday, and I opened my phone, and it was the first thing that came up on my phone. And I had to read it 3 times saying, "Oh no, oh no, oh no." And Jeff was like, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, I didn't even believe it as I was reading it over and over and over again. So, just processing it all, that this actually was reality. And yeah, it's just a lot of people have taken it really hard. And I think his life and his legacy and the short years that he lived are worth talking about, because I think the way that he impacted people and this community is quite profound. And I think it's owed it's time, when it's something, where we have a platform to talk about things within this space. I think it's a life that's worth kind of talking about the impact that it's really had on the world that, we love so much.
When I found out, I was actually at work. I was in a safety meeting, and as you can imagine, with most construction safety meetings, I was not paying attention whatsoever. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm saying I flicked on my phone and I saw it, and I don't even remember if I saw the post or if someone sent it to me, because I know other people did send it to me. I just don't know what happened first because it's all kind of
Yeah.
blends together. And I literally just went, I'm out, and just walked out, and I was absolutely stunned by how hard it hit me. And I mean,
Mhm.
I went out to my car and I did that video in my car like right away because I'm like, I need to. One, I was like, again, I was stunned how hard it hit me, and I'm like, I can't drive quite yet anyway. And I was like, I felt I didn't have the right to be as upset as I was because I said it in the video. Rylan and I were not best friends. We were friends. We chatted online. We would chat a little bit about van life and obviously about sport and everything like that. But yeah, I had it in my feeling like, no, the way you feel is saved for really close friends and family. And I was, and I'm not a super emotional dude. Like I'm not out of touch with my emotions, but I usually am pretty stoic. And it really, really hit me hard. And I mean, I tried to figure out in my head why. And it's just, I think that Rylan was, and I said it in the video too, like when I first saw him and he came on the scene, and I think it was Utah Spartan and for the US National Series. And he was so sweet and nice and kind. And I thought, fucking bullshit. Like, no way. He's like, no, there's something behind it. It's not, you know, we see a lot of people who are online one way and in real life another, and you see that shift. But he wasn't. That was legit him. Like we found it over time.
Mhm.
Was who he was. There was no act. It wasn't playing. He wasn't trying to,
Yeah.
that was who he was. And to lose somebody so young who was not only so amazing as like an amazing athlete, but almost had and I don't want this to come off, a childish naivety about him and an innocence. And just to see that
Hmm.
so young, it just, oh man, it just crushed me.
Hmm.
And I've had so many people reach out and say they felt the same way. They're like, this shouldn't hit me this hard, but it has.
Hmm.
And
Yeah. Yeah, sorry. You finished what you're
no, no, I
saying.
thought you were going, I was letting you go.
Yeah. Well, and it was one of the most interesting things about his passing when you would read people's posts or stories about it is people felt very impacted by it. And a lot of people said something very similar where, it's not like I was his best friend, but I think with Rylan, one of the most profound things about him was when he was interacting with you, he was totally engaged. So you felt he had this really remarkable ability to make people feel super special. So although, you might not have been Ryland's best friend, but in that moment it wasn't important because you were talking to him, and then that was all that mattered in that moment. And one of the cool things that I found about him too was, um, obviously he's one of the best that our sport has ever
Yeah.
seen. High Rocks, Deca, OCR, you name it, came up to him to congratulate him on his race. He'd be like, "How was your race?" And he meant it. And he wanted to hear about it. And that's just so unique from an athlete of his caliber that it didn't matter to him who you are or what level you compete. And that was kind of the overwhelming message from um most people's posts was, we only had these couple interactions, but he just made me feel so so special. And he gave me the time of day. And I think that's what most people said about Rylan was, he talked to me and he asked me how I was doing or how my race was, and he genuinely listened. And the other thing too, and this is the part where it kind of blows my mind because people will be like, "Oh, he would respond to my messages or we would have these conversations online." And I was like, "Man, he must have spent a lot of time also like responding to people's messages and sending people." So, and I know this to be true because Jeff and him had a pretty special bond as well over different things and um unprovoked, he sent Jeff a really beautiful voice message on his birthday and just saying how special he was to him and, how lucky he felt to have met him. And that's not really the message that you would usually get from someone who, they have all these exciting things going on in their life, but he stopped everything to send Jeff that kind of message on his birthday. And that was just the kind of person that he was. And you've heard that from other people too, where he would check in on me.
Mhm.
If he knew I was struggling, he would check in to make sure I was okay, or he would commiserate with me if something was going wrong, or if I was injured, he'd send me, and people have posted these messages where he would send them. And he wasn't doing it to be like, look at me, I'm such a kind person. It was genuinely done in private. Like it wasn't to be showy about it. That was just, he cared more for so many people that I don't even know how he had the time or the mental bandwidth to think about that many people within a day. It's so that's the part that I think that is so remarkable. But, with his passing, there's so many people that just have felt so strongly about it and so connected to him in different ways, even if there was only a couple interactions or, some long chats on Instagram or whatever. So I don't know if I've ever met someone who had that kind of um that way with people, where he just could have the ability to stop everything and make someone in any moment just feel so important to them.
He was at my surprise pizza party.
Yeah. He was out here.
So after I got my shit together
Yeah.
driving home, And then and I shouldn't do this. That is a stoplight, but my phone is just nonstop going crazy, right? And so I'm at a stoplight and I click it, and all I see is Jesse posting the post from said pizza party. I'm like, oh, fuck you.
Yeah.
Like, just
And then you're just
so, but yeah, the time, like you said, that's what grasped me is the time, the time
Mhm.
it must have took him, and the legit care. I just recorded with Matt and Cheryl brought up Dallas Worlds, and he hosted and please forgive me because I'm probably getting the name wrong, but he hosted in the cornering a little prayer session, a little
Yeah, devotional time.
thank you devotional time, and I'm like,
Yeah.
and again, just he was big into faith. He was big into faith. He had he was very strong within his faith, and he was unashamed, which he should be, and and he was just true to himself. Whether you were
Yeah.
have faith or not, or whatever you believe, he just you can't help but respect a guy that was so true to himself.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just and not to mention the crazy, I mean, I think back to that, and the performance he put on that weekend was mind-boggling. Like, just
Mhm.
I mean, things will like I think, and I mean, like things we'll never see him be a High Rocks champ, and I really, really thought he would be one day. Like
Yeah.
there's so many things that we could see, but there's also so many things that he did in a short time that made him amazing. Um,
Mhm. Well, do you remember he started to struggle with all of his breathing issues, and then in Florida this pressure when he roomed with us. But this was also one of those moments where I was like, I've never met an athlete like this who's at the top of this world, and he pulled out of the deck strong.
yeah,
And, and he, because of his breathing issues, they kicked in, and he quietly slipped away to where our bags were, and he grabbed Jeff, and he's like, Jeff, you have to get me out of here. And he's like, I just don't want to make this moment about me because these guys are smashing it, and I don't want people coming up to me when the attention needs to be on them. And which I was like, he had all the reason to feel bad about himself and what was going on, but he didn't want that to be the reason that people's attention was drawn away from the guys who were having a really good race. And he snuck out of the venue. Um, and Jeff said to me too, he was telling me this story, and he was like, we got into the car and he asked about my life. Like there was no like, boo-hoo, woe is me. I came to this world championship. And his first question was like, how's
yeah,
your day going? How's your life? Tell me like how things are with you. Like it wasn't about him. And in that moment, he didn't want it to be about him or whatever was going on with his health issues, which we know has been what was a thing for him in his last year of competing. And I was like, that was just, and it's those little things too that Rylan did that were just made him so unique. And um, when I found out that he had passed, I was like, I nervous to tell my son because when he stayed with us in Florida, Mason and him really hit it off because of their love for dirt bike or for mountain biking. And um, as Rylan did, he gave Mason all the time in the world and was showing him all these cool videos of, biking and the paragliding. And they obviously Mason just, was infatuated with Rylan. Um, so when I told Mason, he was genuinely very upset. And he was like, I was really looking forward to hanging out with him again. Like he said, we were gonna get to ride together someday. And like he was really upset about it. But then again, in Mason's like young, wise ways, he was like, I guess it's just kind of the risks you take with the way he liked to live his life. And which is true. And it's very, for a 14-year-old boy to say that too. It was really sad to see Mason kind of process all of this, but that was again, Mason met him once, and that was his own. experience with Rylan, but it really hit him hard too. So it was just the Rylan effect with anybody that he really sat with and had a genuine conversation with. So
We so the last day of Deca Worlds at Dallas, Ryan and I were late getting back to the house because we finished right to the end. Um, and it was just us and Rylan there because everybody had gone out to dinner and stuff. And I think he was at the time, if I remember correctly, he was doing some of his online coaching, so he's working.
mhm. Yeah.
We sat there and we got to have chat with him then. And I mean, I remember him like just even asking little bits of advice, and stuff about everything and anything. And just like you say, it just wasn't about him. It was about everybody else around him.
Hmm.
Yeah, he was just an incredibly special person. Connor Bell, I saw him this weekend, and he talked to me about it. And I mean, he was very choked up too. He had a rough go, and he said it was Rylan was the first one who started coaching him and helping him get into the hybrid scene and getting started in Deca and High Rocks and all that stuff. And again, of course, build as he did with every builds a bond, and he was just like he said the same thing. He felt that same way about like, I don't feel I have the right, and yet here I am, and I'm just tore up. And then I had to tell him, go away, Connor. It was a lot of that for me, a little bit, but no, I mean, like it was, you can't go online and click on a name and have it not be somehow where he had some effect on that person's life. And I
Yeah.
mean, what is that? Like, what is that? That says something about you as a person.
Hmm.
And I just said this earlier tonight that there's a lot of people out there that are polarizing personalities. Some people
Right.
some people hate him. He was not that. There was just one pole, just
Yeah. Hmm.
the guy, and you don't get a lot of that. Like there was nobody
No.
ever rooting against Rylan.
No.
Like
Yeah.
even if you weren't his friend and you weren't a fan, and it was Rylan one of them, you'd be like, "Well, that's cool. Rylan's a good guy." Like
Yeah. So,
yeah,
and I was thinking about this too because Rylan was one of those people who nobody could say anything bad about Rylan. And so when I think some of the deep sadness is of survivor guilt in a sense for some people. And I know like the true definition of survivor guilt is when there's like an accident or a trauma
yeah,
and the person who lives is the one who they kind of live with like, well, why did I survive and they didn't? But I find sometimes, and this is what I went through when my my good friend passed away in 2020, and Carla, and she was my primary training partner for 7 years, and one of these people too who you could never find someone who could have anything bad about her. And, her celebration of life was standing room only, and there was over 1,000 people there. And pro processing her passing for me, the same with Rylan, they did everything right. So why? And with Rylan, I guess because, he did do high risk sports and stuff, but with her, it was like, because
yeah.
it was cancer. So it's like, well, why? Best way imaginable to prevent something like that and still her. So it was always like, why her and not me? Why her and not me? Right. And so I think some of that could be the sense too with people who are just like, I don't know why this is hitting me so hard. And I think some of it could be that, like, why him? Like, he had so much to offer the world. And his impact was so great. So like why did it have to be? And so I think as we're processing this and just to give people something to think about too, like I think some of it is that, it's like why does it have to be someone who is such a good person? And why did, something like this have to happen to them?
Well, and for me, and I'm sure for you to a certain extent, he was a kid. Like he was. I mean, I have an apprentice at work
Yeah.
right now. He was the same age, and
Mhm.
he's a kid to me. Rylan,
Yeah.
Rylan was is much closer to my daughter's age than to me, right? So I'm to me, it's like I said, it's almost that innocence, right? And I know 27, you're not innocent or whatever, but to me, it was.
Yeah. A lot of life still.
Yeah, yeah. There was,
Mhm.
and I mean, dude packed it in. Like he packed life in a short time he was here. He
Yeah.
saw things that none of us will ever see, or a lot of us will never see, never do. He traveled the world. He did a lot of cool stuff, and it's still not enough,
Hmm.
and not even,
Hmm.
you know, there's so much that I wish he would have got to do. Um, do you want to read that story from Cody?
Yeah. So we 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 kind of sent it out there also to our listeners about any good stories that they had of Rylan. We did chat about a couple like funny stories about Rylan. I joked about how like this guy lived in a way that it was like he was always cheating death.
Mhm.
And this one story, and I don't remember where he was, but he was saying how he I don't remember if he was telling me directly, but he was saying how he traveled somewhere and he couldn't find somewhere to stay, but he didn't care. He just slept on a park bench. And I said to him, like, you can do that because you're a big dude. Like I could never do that. Like I'm just asking to be kidnapped or something.
That he
And he
sleeps on the
was
bench
so
and wakes up in a white van.
right. 100%. That's what would happen to me. Like I could never do that. But that was just he was so free-spirited and like just completely like risk averse. Like he just didn't care in a sense that he just I don't know. He just took so many risks that I could never imagine doing.
I've slept
Um
on before, but I think it was a completely different scenario.
yeah, it wasn't just because you didn't want to pay for a hotel room before a race because there wasn't enough time or whatever.
It
So I
was,
was like, oh
I
man.
might have been 50 yards from home.
Right. Yeah. Just just the way he lived blew my mind. So yeah, we were talking about like some just funny Rylan stories. So this was a story from Cody that he sent in and so these are his words here. The first time I met Rylan, he was struggling to put his timing chip on. So this was a Spartan race. It was a cold early morning in Blue Mountain, 2022. We'd never met. It was only my second race in Canada, my third ever in North America. I went up to him and I said, "Hey, let me help you with that." No pretension from him. He extended his wrist as I helped him out. I made the joke, the hardest part of the race is right here. He chuckled, partly out of pity, I was sure, but it wasn't. There's there were lots of big racers there that day, but he was the only one big name guy who was willing to share a joke and a laugh with a quotation mark competitor. Anyways, turns out the hardest part was trying not to get passed by Emma Cook Clark and Lindsay, which not many of us did. From then on, Rylan and I would exchange messages, catch up at races, talk about adventures in Asia and where to go in Hong Kong, but I'll always remember him extending out that hand and sharing a laugh most.
I mean, I remember that race vividly. Um,
Hmm.
I was
Is
rabbiting.
this the race where when he was running up and he would like stopped and was like, "Guys, look at the
Yes,
sunrise."
yes, it was, and we had it all on video. Yeah, he was like so. Yeah, he was running up, and he didn't really fully stop, but he like slowed and looked back off the mountain at the water in the bay. He's just like, and the sun rises. Just look at it's beautiful. And he was held together with kinesiology tape for that race, and
Yeah.
oh my God. But yeah, I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. The guy, and that's what I mean. Like, it was real. It was-
Yeah. Yeah. He
But
lived in the moment definitely more than a lot of people.
and again, that was a day that did not go well for him race wise. But he was still just himself after. He was just, you know,
Mhm.
and he took away from that because I remember I think we had him on after that and teased him about that. And he's just like, yeah, it was so beautiful. But yeah, I mean,
So
and that was
beautiful.
like National Series championship. By the way, side note, that was, I think, when Spartan peaked right there. That was just the best race.
Hmm.
But, oh man, it was. Sorry, I mean, we'll go on. You say you don't know where to go. You don't know where to go. We'll go on. We'll do our thing. But there will always be that hole. Um, John Loney this weekend ran his mile with RS on his chest. You know,
Hmm.
like just nice. I've seen little tributes anywhere. I was thinking today I might make a patch. A little
Hmm.
Rylan patch and just give them to whoever. You know,
Yeah.
just I just there's so many chats I've had. So many people reached out, and one, thank you everyone who talked to me because it helped me, and
Hmm.
hopefully it helped them too. But yeah, man, it's it's just tough. It's just tough. Um,
Yeah, and I think if more of us just embody the way he lived towards treating people and not just people who, anybody that he came across, I think the world would be a very different place. So, if that's what he left behind, then I think he would be, quite content that that was the Rylan effect of his life. Um, and sometimes I hear that the people sometimes they leave us too early, but it's their impact was done in a sense. And um I know Rylan was a religious guy, and the verse that comes to my head with these situations too is when there was the parable of uh I think it was a farmer, and he gifted his people with different amounts of money, and then the people that really did something with their gifts, he left them saying, well done, faith. What he was gifted with in his life, he used it to his absolute max potential, and the way he affected people was to its absolute max potential. And I think his impact was so great in the years that he was with us that it was like, the universe or whatever you say being like, you've done your job. It's okay to go home now, in a sense, if you have a religious perspective about it at all. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to go down that too far, but just, sometimes people leave when it's supposed to be because their impact has been enough.
yeah, I mean, religion's not a thing that we dabble in a lot.
We don't, but we are talking about Rylan, and that
Yeah,
was definitely a big part of his.
avoidable. And I mean,
Mhm.
I don't think I've ever addressed my views on here, and it I don't think it matters. I think all that matters is I hope Rylan was right, and I think for me that's the best way. I hope he was right, and
Mhm.
if he was, then I'm that definitely would ease things.
Mhm.
So yeah, you know what? We were gonna do some other shit, and I say fuck it.
Yeah.
I don't think we should. This is just our 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 farewell, I guess.
Yeah.
And we can do the other stuff next week, another day, whatever. But I think, I mean, at the very least, Rylan just deserves his own spotlight for one last time, I guess. I don't really know how to put it, but yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said to everybody who is feeling the same way we are, you know, um, just in my mind, the important thing is to take the time and make sure that you hold on to people that are with you now, that are still with you, and never take them for granted because you never know, right? These things
Mhm.
happen and you can't predict it. So just appreciate what you got.
Yeah. And all the things that we loved Rylan for, to just, if we could just embody that a little bit more and, continue to live on his legacy in that way.
Yeah, I think that's the best thing. We'll just try to live like Rylan's watching.
What would Rylan do?
What would Rylan do? WWRD.
Hmm.
All right, everybody. You know what? I think that's it for us today. And just take care, and hopefully we'll see you all soon.